I'm one of those people that believes everything happens for a reason, right? And when the lockdown happened, it kind of gave us a time to kind of get away from each other again. I kind of noticed, like, this is starting to get to the point where it's not like making me feel like I'm having fun anymore.
Hello, my fellow Martians. My name is Harry Mars, and this is the On Mars Pod, where we take a deep dive into creative professionals, entrepreneurs, and other inspiring Martians alike.
And then right after that, we just hit the ground running. Shows, tour, shows. All of that. It was like, it felt real. It was almost overwhelming. It felt like, what do I do now? I kind of felt like I lost my identity for a little bit. All three of us were in agreement that we wanted to put new material out instead of hitting the road again. And they didn't like that.
Hello, my fellow Martians. Today on Mars, we are joined by a recording artist, musician, and one of my good friends that I haven't seen in so many years. I appreciate you coming on. Everybody, welcome Greg Olin. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, man. It's been a long time, and it's we were just catching up before, and it feels like we didn't miss a beat, so it's good to be here today.
100%, dude. I appreciate that a lot, and I found that with a lot of my good friends, it's always like that. Like, it could be years and years and years. When I see them, it's like no days have passed at all, man. So I really appreciate friendships like yours, man. And if anyone doesn't know, Greg is part of the band Weslynn out here in Arizona. Go check them out. So they recently came back on the scene after taking a little bit of a hiatus, but they've been a band for over 10 years now.
Yeah, that's correct. Started
insane.
In 2013.
It's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
No, I met Greg in, I think 16 or 17, I think is what it was, when I was working with teammate Marcus Reardon, episode 2. But yeah, Greg and Marcus were friends, and then we ended up hanging out because bands, we just, in the scene. It was like going to parties and stuff together and all that stuff. But yeah, we got a good rich history.
We do.
I'm so stoked
to
get into this.
Yeah.
So on Mars, we take a deep dive into creative professionals, entrepreneurs, and other inspiring Martians alike. So that's why I wanted to have you on here, man, because you fit those boxes in a couple different ways. So just again, means a lot that you came on, but I want to start off with, early days. I usually like to give a little bit of an origin in a way. Like, did you grow up in Arizona?
Yeah, born and raised. My mom's actually from Brazil.
Okay.
So I'm fluent in Portuguese, which a lot of people don't know.
Dang.
And then my dad, he was from Brooklyn and grew up in Long Island, and they had met. But I was born and raised here in Phoenix my entire life.
So did they meet in New York?
No, they met in Brazil.
Whoa.
Yeah, bro. He was on a business trip. And you're on a business trip in Brazil. I mean, what are you going to do, right? I guess. So he met my mom, and I was conceived in Brazil, but luckily I was born here in the States.
Dang. So is your mom Brazilian?
Yep, 100%. Yeah, she's got a thick accent. Yeah.
Dang. So she talked to you in Portuguese when you
Only
were a
when
kid?
she's mad at me. No, she's pretty good with English. That's our primary language. But when she's upset, she'll start throwing that Portuguese out at me.
So how did you become fluent then?
She talked a lot on the phone, as I guess most foreign parents do, and I would kind of pick up on it. So and then I have an older brother that was born in Brazil, a half brother, and they spoke Portuguese. So I just picked up on it, and I think when you're young, you can really be a sponge for other languages.
For sure.
And that kind of actually made it easier for me to obviously learn Spanish.
Yeah.
So I'm trilingual.
Dang, dude, that's what's up. No, I learn something new every day. I didn't know that, bro. That's insane.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point too. Like when you're immersed, like the immersion thing, where it's just people using it around you and not necessarily super formal, like getting taught in school, because usually that just goes right over, or like in one ear, out the other. Like people that were in Spanish for 4 years can't even speak it now.
Yeah.
It's like, but the people that grew up with their grandparents or their parents talking it to them, they're the ones that actually retain that information.
Yeah, and it's natural. Yeah.
Yeah. So then growing up in Arizona, I want to talk about like musical influences and what was being played around the house and what were they listening to that inspired you back in the day?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it brings back such fond memories, because when I was a kid, I just remember being in the backseat of my parents' car, and my dad was just always listening to 100.7 KSLX, right?
What is that?
The Valley's classic rock. Right? I'm a walking poster child. So I grew up a lot on that classic rock stuff, right? Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, Paul McCartney, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. They just, for whatever reason, it just clicked with me. And ironically, the first concert I ever went to was to see Def Leppard.
No way.
Yeah. I might have been 8 or 9 years old, like 4th grade maybe. And I was obsessed with them because I thought it was so cool. Their drummer had one arm.
Wow.
So I told my dad, like, I want to see them. And he got us tickets. And my first concert was seeing Def Leppard, right? One of the most, awesome 70s and 80s rock bands ever. So I think that moment was just like, wow, I really love this stuff. And then as I got older, being influenced by like that music my dad listened to, he always had a really cool like vinyl record collection, Fleetwood Mac and stuff. And then I kind of got into like, the Motown era. As I got older, I really liked the Temptations, Marvin Gaye. Yes. And then that as I got older, that kind of transformed into like more R&B and stuff like that. So I can like with confidence say that I am one of those people that likes pretty much everything: country, R&B, classic rock, jazz, you name it. I just love music,
dude. And those artists that you're naming are legends.
Yes.
So it's just like all of these people are classic artists, and this is when music was like real instruments, super tight vocals, and like everything was very it was different. It was a different industry for sure. So, yeah.
And I think that's something that stuck with me even as I kind of got into the music business. I've always like, and the cool thing about Weslynn, which you mentioned, was, Jared and Kevin, they also kind of somehow had the same influences, right? Yeah. They talk about when they were younger, listening to classic rock with their dad and their, parents. So I think that was a common bond that we all shared. But yeah, that definitely influenced my love for music.
Absolutely, man. And your creation of music too, like when you went into writing music, and that kind of segues into, when did you start learning instruments, or when did you realize that you wanted to start writing music?
This is actually a pretty cool story. And I hope I won't take up too much time with this one, but
you're good.
So my dad got me a guitar and I was about 9 or 10, and he came home with I'll never forget it. I wish I still had it, but you lose things over time, but it was a black and white Yamaha ripoff of a Stratocaster.
Yes.
And it was so cool because, right, like it was like, oh, this is what Jimi Hendrix used to play. So I'm actually left-handed.
Oh, so the same.
So he was like, just flip it upside down like Jimi Hendrix did.
Yeah.
And that really wasn't working for me, but I would play around with it a little bit, right? And I had that for about a year or two, and I would pick it up and play. And I remember having VH1 on when they'd actually play music, right?
The videos.
Yeah, right? Like it was actually about music. And I would like stand in front of the TV and just strum away, not playing any chords or anything like that. But I could tell like this was so cool. Like I wanted to do this, right?
Yeah.
So then, like, I don't know what happened, but when I was around 12 or 13, I kind of like lost that love for the guitar. I wasn't doing it as much. But across the street, literally right across the street from me, was my childhood friend, David, who, I will preface it with this, actually recorded Westlynn's first EP in Nashville, Tennessee. Yeah.
Mustache.
Yeah, David. Shout out to my boy David.
Yes.
He's still doing the music out in Nashville today, which I'm sure we'll touch on. But so anyway, so at that same period, he had gotten a guitar and was like, I love it. I'm going to get into this. So I remember going over to his house around this time and getting back into it with him. So we kind of started really playing guitar that same day together. And for whatever reason, like it's so vivid in my mind. I remember sitting with him at his desk. He had his guitar and I had mine. And we were just learning like super easy stuff together.
Yes, dude.
So isn't that crazy? Full circle, right?
100%. I mean, being kids.
Oh, we grew up, literally, we were born a month apart and our moms were friends, right? And I just think it's so funny we both ended up in the music scene.
For sure. So. Dude, I love that it's like goes back to those roots where it was always this like passion that you guys shared together. And then you kind of had like parallels where like you guys just kept going and kept staying hungry, kept learning. And that's amazing. I mean, early on, did you guys write music or were you just playing covers and stuff like that?
We were
as kids?
Yeah, we were learning. So we were learning like classic rock songs. Like I remember one of the first things we learned was from the Eagles. He liked one of the Eagles songs. So I was trying to learn it. And he was actually a lot better than me. He was advanced. And I was getting frustrated because I was like, dude, how are you better than me? We literally started on like the same day. I actually got my guitar first. Like this is bogus.
It's my thing.
Yeah. And to this day, I'm sure if he's watching this, you are still better at guitar than me, but that's a discussion for a different day.
Set the record straight. Yeah. So then So I guess because your dad bought you the guitar, this kind of answers the question, but like, did they support the music thing, and they always supported it from the beginning, both your parents?
Yeah. And I'm really lucky to have that support because, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, some parents are like, you know, you can let it be a hobby.
Yeah.
That was never the case for me. I remember that my dad got that guitar, and then I was like, once I started wanting more, he was always supportive. He bought me a drum set, which, God rest his soul, I bet he regrets that. But he was always supportive. He would let me play whenever I wanted. He just said, shut the door and learn some cool songs. So yeah, I always had the support. And then even from my mom, you know, because she would always play like, she liked Eric Clapton a lot. And when I started playing guitar, she's like, oh, learn this song for me, you know, and stuff like that. So I always had that support, which really means a lot. And I'm really thankful for it.
As a kid, it's so important, man, in those early days, because like you said, some parents that are say like, oh yeah, it's cool, but you should be a doctor or a lawyer if you want to make a living. And just do this on the side for fun. But it's so nice. And I feel like some of the most creative people that I've had on here, they all have that similar parallel to where their parents were very influential to them in a supportive way. Yeah. Which I love that. I love hearing all of that too, because it's the saddest thing ever when someone gets suppressed and they feel like they don't have confidence in themselves because they didn't have the support system growing
around
up.
them. Yeah.
So I love to hear that, man. So other than music then growing up, was there any other loves or hobbies that you had before we continue on with the music stuff?
You know, they tried to put me in sports a couple different times. They put me in soccer, and I think that was the Brazilian heritage in me that were like, maybe he could be in football. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, but it wasn't for me, man. I just, you know, I was always like a smaller kid, and I felt like I just wasn't the most athletic. Then they tried baseball, and I didn't like it. Yeah. What's funny though is I love sports now. I love watching sports. I love losing money when I'm betting on sports. But it just wasn't for me.
I love losing money.
Yeah, right. my record on the sports book, it ain't good right now. But no, I love sports, but it just wasn't for me. It was always music that, I don't know why. It was something like special. Like I mean that, and I've heard people say that, but I mean that whenever like a song would come on that I actually felt an emotion from, it would like pull me in such a way. It was almost magnetic. Yeah. It was always music.
Yeah. So even before you were in the industry, it was just a love that you had, even like just growing up, just because you just loved to hear it and feel the feelings, goosebumps and all that stuff.
Yeah. I remember I would get most excited like every couple times a month. My dad would take me to like Circuit City or Best Buy, the throwback.
Circuit City.
Yeah, and we would buy CDs, right? He'd let me buy whatever I wanted. And at this time, I'd kind of like really discovered I liked all kinds of music. And I remember him buying me like the Eminem CD, which was like so taboo because I was so too young to have it.
Which one was it?
The Marshall Mathers EP. Oh, yeah, wow. That crazy one, dude. It's a great album. Yeah. And I remember him getting me that. And I was into like the Doors for a period of time, just like such a wide variety of music. But it was always music that was just really capturing me. And I would sit in my room and just listen to these CDs and just take it in. And I loved it.
Dude, I love that, man. And that just kind of goes to show you that your early days end up playing into who you become like as an adult. Yeah. So it makes sense that all that, you know, all these things that you're saying, it's like even the influences that you had around you, it's so cool to hear that. So I want to move into, when did you meet Kevin and Jared?
So it's weird, man. I always say that David was like my connector to all things art and music. So David, the guy across the street from me who we learned guitar from, he became close friends with Kevin because they went to the same church.
Okay.
And I'm pretty certain, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they actually started playing at the church together. David was playing guitar and Kevin's always been a good drummer. Exactly. Yeah. So they started doing that. And the weirdest thing was, David will get a kick out of this, and Kevin too. David wouldn't let me meet Kevin. He kind of kept us separate.
Gatekeeping.
Yeah, kind of. And I think it's because I wasn't really into the church scene, and Kevin was he was really into it, and they were both like really, you know, dialed in with that. And I was always kind of the wild child, right? So he didn't let us meet for the longest time, and finally he let us meet under these weird circumstances around music. And he's like, hey, I got some gear. I want to start recording music. You can finally meet my friend Kevin. Wow. And I met Kevin, and he was just the complete opposite of me. I think he hated me because I'm so outgoing and energetic, and he's the most mellow, you know, quiet, shy guy. So we were like two opposites. It was like oil and water, but it connected.
Yo, when was this? Like what, how old are you guys?
Oh boy, this might have been my freshman year of high school.
Okay. Wow. So that was still early days. You guys were kids
yes,
still, yeah.
we were still kids, yeah. And then literally that same year, I met Jared, our
Someone's
singer.
at my front door. I don't know. Somebody trying to sell me something.
Tell them to get out of here.
Yeah,
It's probably the
they
IRS
rang my doorbell.
looking for me, bro.
Saw your car out front.
I
They're
know,
like,
they
yeah.
saw I got my license plate, Grego. They saw me. They're like, he's here. Let's go get the money from him. Well, you ain't getting it.
So around that same time, you met Jared as well, you said, in high school?
Yeah, we actually had a Spanish class together, and I knew that was David and Kevin's friends. So I like went up to him, I was like, hey, you know David and Kevin? He's like, yeah. And I was like, I'm Greg. I'm the other friend. He hasn't let me meet you yet. And I literally went up to him and goes, are you driving David home from school? Let me get a ride. I live across the street from him. So he was so cool, man. And he was just like, he just totally accepted me. And we kind of became like a crew.
Wow. So you guys were just like a friend crew before you started a band together.
Yeah. So what's funny though is that David and Jared and Kevin were kind of starting to make demos and start writing together. And I wasn't really into it at that time. I was kind of like, at that time, I was really into hip hop.
Ooh,
Yeah.
nice.
And I was really into the hip hop and like beats and rapping and stuff. So I wasn't really too interested. I was still playing guitar a little bit here and there, but it wasn't something I was focused on, right?
Yeah.
So at that time, when I found out they were starting to do this, I was like, hey, let me come over and we can start rapping or something, like check it out. So they kind of had me around for a little bit, just kind of hanging around while they were making stuff. And it's funny, David still has some of those old recordings and they were so bad.
Dude, I mean, we were probably using like GarageBand. Like,
not even, bro. I think
like
we were
Audacity.
in Audacity. Yeah, bro.
The free one, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then kind of somewhere in between there, they started a band called Arcadia Sky, which actually did pretty well. Obviously in high school, it's easy to get support when, oh, there's a band, let's go check them out. So
yeah, seeing these kids every day.
Exactly. Yeah. So they started doing that. And then they were like, hey, they're all kind of shy. And they're like, hey, you're such an outgoing person. You should be like our manager. AKA they wanted me to like sell their pre-sale tickets, which I was like, cool, I just want to be a part of it. So I did. And I was a hell of a manager, bro.
Yeah, hey, dude, dang. So, that was your introduction into the industry.
That was it. That was my first real step into it. They were doing shows. I would help them kind of get set up and stuff. And we did that probably for like 2 years, like junior and senior year. We were doing that. And that's really when Jared started kind of like diving into the writing. And I could just see when you see like a rocket ship, like I saw him excel with just writing and becoming more confident behind the mic and with his guitar. So they did that for 2 years. And then David made the decision that he wanted to go into the conservatory for recording arts and he wanted to focus on that.
Crass,
Crass here in the Valley. So he did that. And it was kind of this weird thing where like, they were like, yeah, I don't know. It kind of fizzled out. Jared kind of started working on some solo stuff with Kevin because Kevin's always been Jared's drummer.
Wow.
I think till the day we die.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, so this friendship stems back to like childhood,
yes.
really. I mean, because when you're in high school, you're still kids. So it's like to be able to have that energy as like a group, even in those days, that's a testament to you guys' friendship right there. You've been able to not only stay friends this long, but like making music this whole time and grow with each other. And the fact that you were able to see Jared like turn this love into like a real burning passion and start to become the front man that he is today, back in the days. That's cool, man. So then when was it that, Weslynn started in 2013, I think.
Yes.
So how late after that was that? This
was an interesting time. So we moved out of our places pretty much right when we turned 18. We're
nice.
We got to get out of here. That angst of being a boy and wanting to get out. So we finished high school. And
18 years old.
Yeah. So we get out of high school. David's finishing up at conservatory, Crass, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to make the move to Nashville.
At 18?
Yeah, he stuck around for a year or two to kind of get prepared for it. So he was kind of gunning for Nashville, and he's been there ever since, which is awesome. So that's a testament to him and his hard work. But
huge.
Yeah. So that during that time, Jared and me and Kevin kind of started we moved in together, and we had this condo in Tempe that we lived at, and we were broke, dude. We were going to college. We were broke, living there, making music, and just drinking and partying and writing songs. And Jared had started up like a side project that I thought was really cool. It was like really ambient and it was kind of different for him. And he started that up and he had me and Kevin, ironically, right? It's always been us.
Yeah.
He had us helping out with it. And he kind of decided he wanted to take that to Nashville. So then he actually moved to Tennessee right around the same time with David, and they actually went together.
Whoa.
Yeah. So then this is funny. So then me and Kevin kind of became, it was just us, right? Like, well, you know, we were living together at the condo still. And I was like, well, I can't sing, but I can rap. so Kevin.
And you can play drums.
Hey, so what does that lead to? Making beats, bro. Kevin made some fire beats, bro. Like they were so lit. And he was like, let's record them. So we started rapping and stuff. And we did that for a year too. And it was just fun. I put a couple of things out. And they were lit, bro. Like,
do you still have them out on the internet?
Yeah, dude, they're out there. They're on YouTube. They're
under
lit.
Greg O?
Yeah, there's some stuff under Greg O featuring like Jared. We'll have to like put some out there. We had a song called Jungle Party, bro. It was so lit.
Dude, I'll put it in post.
Put it in post. But David actually produced that for us, which was cool. Full circle once again.
Yeah.
So anyways,
been the crew.
Right. So let me fast forward. So me and Kevin are kind of hanging out, just partying and stuff and rapping. And Jared reaches out to us and goes, hey guys, I'm moving back. I'm just not catching my traction in Nashville. David's, you know, rocking it. He's got internships at a couple studios. I'm just not feeling it. I want to get back there. And this is like a 2-3 month period when we knew he was coming back. And I don't know what happened, but I was like, Kev, I don't want to rap with you anymore. I want to like, let's make some like, I want to write something, like some real stuff that I can stand behind that like I'm emotional about. So I wrote a song with Kevin. It's never been released, but it's one of my most proud songs ever, like ironically. And he was so supportive, and like he was like, dude, this is really good.
Yeah.
Like you should show this to Jared when he gets back. So I played it to Jared like literally the day he moved back. We met up at In-N-Out Burger because he had missed it because they don't have that in Nashville. I was like, well, that's our spot. Let's go meet up.
Yes. So
I played it in the car. It was like a really bad demo, and he was like blown away. He's like, bro, first of all, I didn't know you could sing. And I was like, I can't. But more importantly, more importantly, he's like, dude, these lyrics are crazy, bro. This is so good. So he's like, would you be cool if like maybe I sang on it? I was like, for sure. That was my intention. I always wanted you to sing on it, right? So we started working on that. And then all around the same time, we started like making demos. And my mom, like I was living back with my mom at this time, and we had this big spare bedroom that I turned into a studio. And we started pumping out songs. And one of the first songs we wrote collectively was called Shiny Night, which was on our first EP. And so we did that, and we started playing at coffee shops and stuff, Long Wongs in Tempe. And it just felt right. Like it was like, dude, now I'm in the band. Now I'm actually playing guitar. Kevin's playing drums, Jared's singing and, you know, and playing guitar.
Right.
And it felt real. So we put all the money we could together. Jared's mom, you know, kind of helped out and sent us to Nashville, ironically, to go record with David.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Full story, full circle. Recorded at First Ave Studios in Franklin, Tennessee. And it was awesome.
So this was the early days of Weslynn, the origin of Weslynn. Were you guys called Weslynn from the beginning?
Yeah, that was always the name. We had to think of a name, and there was a street not far from here in Tempe called Weslynn.
Yeah, Weslynn. Yeah,
we used to party, and I had some friends that I would go hang out with and do some naughty stuff with. And when it came time to pick a band name, I was like, dude, let's just name it that street that we always pass by near ASU. And we changed the spelling a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's the name that we've always liked.
Yo, I never knew that, man. I never put the two and two together. I've seen the street and like thought like, oh, that sounds like Weslynn, but I never thought that was the actual.
Yeah. You know what's funny, bro? If you go on the internet now, like since 2016-ish, there are so many people naming their daughters Weslynn, like with our spelling. And I feel like I should get some credit for that, you know? So
some royalties, bro.
Something, dude. Like, come on, I started a trend. It's a beautiful name though. And whenever we see like, we have, you know, people that follow us and reach out, I'm like, that's my name. I'm like, well, we were here first, but it's a beautiful name. And
neither here nor there, but
yeah, but we're really proud of the name and we like it.
Dude, I love that. And it's cool that it's always been that. Yeah. And also it's always been the core group. And I like that it all kind of stems back to like the four of you guys, including David.
Yes.
Because that was something, you know, that was on the notes for a little later, like working in Nashville. But I didn't realize that when you were working in Nashville, because I saw like when doing some research that like you were out there and you were in a professional studio and stuff. I didn't realize that was with David.
Yeah, he engineered it and
sick,
mixed
dude.
it. Yeah, it's awesome.
So then when did you meet Adam?
So right around the same time after our first EP, we started playing like crazy. We hit the ground running hard. And Adam was in another band at the time called Radio Drive-By.
Right.
And we just clicked with him. And he is the best guitar player I have ever encountered.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He's amazing guitar player. And I really clicked with him because he too just really inspired by the classic rock music. And he was always just down to get super drunk with me, which was awesome. So we met up with Adam, and he was at a point where his band was kind of fizzling out. They all kind of wanted to go and do their own thing. And I was like, we need to scoop him up and get him. Cause like I'll be honest, like I wasn't really playing much guitar until Weslynn again. And Jared was literally teaching me parts to play.
Wow. So he would write
the parts and then have me teach me to play them literally like when we're rehearsing. And Jared, your patience for me I owe that to you forever. Thank you. You were my best guitar teacher ever, Jared. So there you go. So we got Adam to kind of take over that lead part so I could focus more on the rhythm, and then Jared could kind of just put more emphasis on his singing. And that's right when we started hitting the ground running and started writing our next EP, which was the Black and Champagne EP.
Ooh, yeah, yes, classic.
Which changed our lives.
So that was when Adam was officially part of the group.
Yes, he helped write and record that album.
Wow, man. Because I feel like that group of guys was like when I first met you guys, when you were really at that point, and that's when you guys were in it. You were playing so many shows, and it was for real.
It was the full-time job. That's what we were doing. And then we signed that deal shortly after that.
Damn, man. Oh, shit. That's insane.
Yeah.
So before we talk about the deal, because I definitely want to talk about like the being signed and getting signed and kind of in that world. But I wanted to touch on, I saw something back in the day. You got, in 2014, you got a Telecaster.
Yeah.
Then that was like, oh yes, finally, and like Telecaster is one of my dream guitars.
Yeah.
And I just want to like ask you about like that, like what was it about the Telecaster that always, that you always wanted one?
You do your research really well for this, bro. I love that, man.
Course.
You're the man at podcasting. Shout out to you for that research.
Thank you.
Yes. So when it came time, that's just right around that time when we were first starting to play out live a lot. And Jared was like, because I was borrowing one of his guitars and he had a Tele, and I was like, this is a nice guitar. And
nice.
I told my dad, I was like, hey dad, I think it might be time I need a new guitar. You want to help me out? And he was like, nah, you're on your own for this one. I bought you enough stuff. And I was like, all right, fair enough. So I went to Guitar Center, and I was looking at a couple different Teles. The Telecaster was just always something that caught my eye because of Tom Petty. He's my all-time favorite artist, and he was always playing like a Tele.
Yeah.
And
beautiful.
even Mike Campbell, his guitar player, was always pretty much on a Tele. And I was like, this is what I want. This is just that classic look. And I found the Sunburst one up on the Guitar Center at the I-17, and I was so scared to go by myself. Jared came with me, and he helped me, not get robbed at gunpoint. And we took a picture in front of that Guitar Center with that guitar.
Yeah, I think that's the I'm gonna put it right here just so people can see it, because that's the photo that I saw where it's just like, it was almost like, yes, finally, like I got this guitar.
At that moment when I got that guitar, that's when like it was like, okay, I'm really gonna buckle down and really treat this like a craft. And I started practicing. Me and Jared would get together and just start working on stuff. So that really was a big moment when I got that Tele.
Dude, I love that, man. I mean, it's like that was I'm sure like your kid self was just like, you made it.
I did.
You got the Tele.
I got the Made in Mexico Tele, bro. Let's do it, man. That's funny, dude.
I love that. So now let's get into being Weslynn and getting signed. And how did that happen? Like, were you guys, would you get like found at like a show or something like that? Or what kind of, did they approach you? Or
it was just fascinating how it happened. So we were touring now at this point. We were playing shows. We were doing a lot of stuff in California, Nevada, Utah. We did some stuff. And ironically, Adam, who was in the group, had made a connection with our first manager ever, Amy Rogers.
Yes.
And she's changed my life. I wouldn't be the person I am today if it wasn't for Amy. Her patience with me and just everything she did behind the scenes for me. I could never repay you, so thank you.
Yeah, she's the GOAT.
She really is. And I love what she's doing out here in the Valley too. She's taken over the industry. I just swear in like 5-10 years, she's going to be like, who's Warner Brothers? It's Amy Rogers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we actually got booked for a festival in Nevada that she was kind of helping put on. Adam had made a connection with her from his Radio Drive-By days.
Right.
Because she had known their band, I think booked them a couple times, and he kind of helped us get this gig in Nevada.
This is when she was still living there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. In the small town of, I don't even know, 400 people.
Yeah.
They booked this festival. And Amy, if you're watching this, that stage is still the biggest stage we've ever played on. They literally got a Coachella stage for 400. Yeah, bro. It was lit though. It was one of the awesome, most awesome
production.
shows.
Yeah.
But she honestly booked that show, and that the money we made from that was actually used to record the Black and Champagne EP. So she in a million ways had made that album happen. So thank you. So we booked that show, and her and I really hit it off. You know, she was so into the music scene that I would like the music I liked and the movies I liked, and we just hit it off. And you know, then I was like, you know, we've never really had a real manager. You know, you should be like in this. You booked this whole festival. You should be doing this. Like you're good at this. So we made that connection. We came back here and started writing material and stuff. And then, you know, long story short, she ended up here in the Valley and was like, I'm here now and I want to help you guys. I really like your music and stand behind you guys. And I think you have what it takes. So she literally hit the ground running and was starting to make calls for us and stuff, and pretty much had found a small group. It was a boutique label who wanted to sign a band, and she thought we were just the most ready and had the most radio ready songs, commercialized, you know, and they gave us a deal.
So this is when she was with had started Square One Creative Management. Is that
this
like
is right around that? This was before that time, but
before it was like official.
Yeah,
she was
exactly.
just getting her feet wet in a way.
Exactly, and she was managing us and kind of also the middleman between us and that label.
Right.
And that was a trip, man. Like being able to say we got signed, you know, it obviously wasn't like Sony or anything big like that, but still to know that someone believed in us enough to put their bank behind it.
Yeah.
Was huge.
Totally.
And it didn't end ideally, but we can get there. But during that time, it just changed everything. You know, at that time, the focus was we can focus 100% on music. We can write, we can demo, and we can go record wherever we want and, you know, get whatever we need to make this happen. So right around that time, we were playing like crazy, man. I feel like me and Jared and Kevin were on the road, and Adam too. We were just on the road constantly. Just any gigs we could get, we were playing. Yeah. And it was grueling. And that's right around the time when I started, you know, really taking in that rock star lifestyle, right? I was like, I'm on a deal now. Who can stop me, right? So, so that's how that whole thing played out.
So then when you did get signed, I know you're talking about like we can record anywhere, but were you recording in like LA, or were you like recording in different places? Like were you actually like using their budget in that kind of sense? Like...
We were using their budget. But when it came time to pick where we were going to take the Black and Champagne EP, there were a couple of options actually. There was two pretty substantial producers in LA that we were going to go to. But Jared wanted to keep it, and we all agreed, and Amy did too. You could say some of it was because of the budget, but you know, I have expensive taste, right? So what? The recording budget, it got you know, taken into a little bit. Sorry, but we ultimately made the decision to go with Dan Parker.
Oh yeah,
who is a rock star in his own right. You know, he was in some bands, and he's gotten to work with some really awesome artists. And he was local, and we wanted to do that. So Jared and we all met with him, and Jared just really always loved his take on production and vocals specifically. And so we recorded with him, and they came out so good. Like I feel like he took our vision at that time and just made it like perfect.
And that was the first time you ever worked with an outside producer,
right?
Because prior to that, you guys were recording your own demos, right?
Right, and doing it ourselves.
With David,
who was pretty much in the band. You know what I mean? So
for sure.
It's different to have that outside perspective. Yeah, and I think Jared really liked that because it kind of he took the songs to another level.
Yo, I mean, I feel like that's like you feel like personally you guys leveled up at that point.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Where it's like we're in it now. Like this is industry. Like we're in professional studios. Like this guy that doesn't even know us believes in us, makes us sound better than we ever have.
Correct.
And, yo, so how long were you guys signed, and like how did that go? I mean,
so the Black and Champagne EP came out, and the label was really pushing it. We had like this crazy party that Amy put together for us. It was awesome. It was amazing. I think we had like 200 people there, and it was like the album release. And then right after that, we just hit the ground running. Tour, shows, you know, radio, all of that. It was like, it felt real. It was almost overwhelming because I was still so young, right? I was like 2016, 2015, and it happened fast. And so we were just playing so much, man. We were playing so many shows everywhere, and I could kind of tell that it was starting to like wear on us a little bit, being on the road that much. And then, you know, I at that time I was partying a lot, drinking a lot. And I felt like my mind wasn't in the right spot And kind of right around that time, the label came to us and was like, hey, listen, what's next? You know, you guys going to do another record? Or you're going to go on tour? We need to start making some money back.
Yeah.
And I felt like all three of us were in agreement that we wanted to put new material out instead of hitting the road again. And they didn't like that. And things kind of went a little south. They were kind of like, well, it's not really an option. You're going to hit the road.
Yeah.
And it kind of ended badly where pretty much they were like, well, then we're going to go to court and you're not going to be a part of this with us anymore. Jeez. And, you know, Amy, once again, came in to save the day. And then no joke, literally got us in touch with Alice Cooper's lawyer. Alice Cooper, which is ironic, right? Because I talked about that classic rock influence on me,
yeah,
right?
for sure.
So when Alice Cooper's lawyer is reaching out like, hey, I want to help you guys out. I'll give you a discounted rate and we'll get you taken care of. I was just like, this is so full circle. I was like, dude, like if my dad was still here to know this, he would have been so proud. Like, hell yeah, Alice Cooper's saving the day, which is cool because, you know, Alice Cooper does a lot for the Valley and local music. So
yeah, is he from here?
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
He still lives here too.
Yeah, because he's thrown some events around here and stuff like that. But dang, so that's pretty crazy lawyer to get. I mean,
I know he knew. Obviously, he knew what he was doing. Yeah, so
like,
he actually
up.
He saved us, man. He got us out of that situation pretty scot-free. We got to keep our masters, which is the biggest thing, right? Huge. That's your art. Yeah. We got to keep that, which we would then re-release down the road. So right around the same time, while all that's happening, it's kind of like discouraging, right? You know, you felt like you were on the cusp of something. The feedback on Black and Champagne was huge. It was starting to pick up in different countries, but in the background, we're about to get dropped.
Yeah.
You know, which was like a dagger, and it kind of discouraged all of us in a way. So then we took it with like our heads held high, and we're like, let's not let this take us off course, right? Let's keep writing, and we can record on our own budget. You know, we can book gigs. You know, Amy can get us gigs, and we'll just keep going to Dan Parker. And that's kind of what we did for a while.
Just fronting the bill yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. Almost independent, right?
Yeah.
We still had an awesome manager, Amy, who stood behind us and took care of everything. But at a point, it gets really hard, right?
Yeah.
As the expenses come up, right? And then literally right around the pandemic time, right? I'm sure you've heard this from a lot of artists. That pandemic was just rough.
Tough.
And we kind of made the decision that, hey, you know what? Let's take a little break. And that was really hard for me because like Weslynn, like we all grew up together, right? Like since we were like 18, 19, well, really Weslynn was like 21 and up, and it felt like, what do I do now? I kind of felt like I lost my identity for a little bit. But it was okay because I needed a break. We had been on the road so much that it was okay. But, you know, months turned into years, and then the pandemic happened, and it was really hard. And that's kind of like when I kind of went through some darker times, trying to figure out who I was without music. And I don't think I'm anyone without music. So during the pandemic, ironically, Jared just hit me up one day and was like, hey, I miss you guys. Let's get together and just write. And, you know, I was like, okay. So we all get hand sanitizer and clean up. We're all like 6 feet apart. And we started writing again for the first time in probably like 2 or 3 years. And it felt so special. And we started working on these songs, and it was cool. And then like the lockdown really happened, right? And then we kind of took another break, and I was like, oh, right when we were getting back into it, this lockdown, like we can't get together and do this remotely. Like we weren't there yet.
Yeah.
So that happened. And then just recently, you know, the last 2 years, 3 years, we got back together and started writing some new songs, which were our 3-song EP Lights On, which I mixed.
Dude, hell yeah. No, and that's like the kind of the full story right there. Yeah. But to kind of like take it back a little bit during that time, like to kind of talk about how it was your identity. I think it's really important because Weslynn almost immediately was like received very well. You got, you know, you had a strong backing.
Yeah.
So I feel like that was something that was not necessarily normal. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of people will work on this stuff and do things for a long time before they go on tours and before they get all these shows, before they get approached by a record label and have to deal with entertainment lawyers. So it's like you guys were like doing this stuff like at a high level pretty early on.
Yeah. And I appreciate you saying that because it's special to take notice of that. So thank you. But yeah, it really did happen fast. And I'm not really too sure how that happened. I hate when people say music is connections, but it truly is making connections and networking. And I think that we just consistently had the right group of people. Like when Adam came into the picture, he had so many connections, and then Amy really changed things and made things happen so fast. I don't think like anyone would have worked harder for us than Amy, and things just happened so fast. Like it almost felt like it was overnight.
Yeah.
You know, that we wanted to play at Crescent. We got a show, you know what I mean? Like the biggest venues in the town at the time, they were taking us on, having us open for big national acts. And it just happened. And I think a lot of that was just the work ethic that Jared made us have. Like me and Kevin would always complain like, Jared's making us rehearse 7 hours a week. We were meeting up every night. We had a practice space with all of our gear, and we were meeting up every night, 3-4 hour rehearsals, man. And I think that made us stand out. Because we were willing to put the time into our craft. And make that live show something memorable that not a lot of like bands were doing at the time. We were putting in the work, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's it. Because the difference is putting yourself out there and putting that work in and trying to get these shows versus the people that are like bedroom people that just like don't show anyone their stuff. Don't try to get out there. Don't try to do shows. Don't rehearse 7 hours a week. So that's the reason why it probably happened so quickly, and you guys were forced to have to take it seriously. And that was and you guys weren't working day jobs at the time, or
we were doing some small stuff on the side just to survive, but music was pretty much our full-time gig at that time, which was pretty cool to say.
Dang, dude. So I feel like that's pretty insane to like have to feel that taking it seriously so early on.
Yeah. And there's a lot of pressure too with it, right? Which I think kind of culminated with, you know, our hiatus too, because I think we all needed a break. And at that same time, Adam ended up leaving the band to kind of pursue his own thing.
Right. That's when he started Wanderer.
Yep. He started Wanderer, which was an awesome project. It was like super cinematic and, you know, heavily influenced by the 80s. And then he started kind of doing like the hired gun thing and working with some bigger acts, playing guitar for them and stuff. So it all happened really fast, and it kind of all fizzled out really fast.
Damn. So in that time, there was I want to talk about there was an account that I heard. I think Amy had told me this one time. It was Pete Rosenberg.
Yeah.
So set the record straight. Was that a fake account?
I would never say he's a fake account. And he had real intentions. And he actually really, and this was
he a real person?
He's a real person for sure. I'm not going to get into the details of who or where he lives, but he's a real person. But what's funny is Pete Rosenberg was kind of ahead of his time, because a lot of artists now are having these accounts. They're almost like fan pages or like street teams, right?
Yeah.
Pete Rosenberg was the first one doing it, bro. He was doing it, getting our name out there, making connections. We actually, no joke, got approached by, I think, The Voice because of Pete Rosenberg. I'm not even making this up. The Voice had reached out specifically looking for Jared.
Wow.
Because, you know, he's actually put in like so much time in his vocal performance, and it stands out. People like his voice. And ironically, The Voice reaches out to Pete Rosenberg, and they were trying to get us on there.
Yo,
I know. It didn't work out with our timeline. We were touring heavily, and all of the politics behind, I'm sure you know what they try to do with their whole like, oh, well, you're going to need to come here with this, and this. And it wasn't aligned. But Pete Rosenberg, while his name might not be Pete Rosenberg in real life, he is a real person. And, he was really ahead of his time with the social media marketing, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. Because I remember seeing Pete Rosenberg, and it was almost like a James Franco-esque looking profile.
Yeah.
and
he's still on Twitter today, bro.
Yeah.
Go check him out. Give him a follow, and he'll love to hear what you have going on in the music scene, because he probably has some input on it.
Yeah, dude. I always remember like seeing the love that he would share for Weslynn in those early days, like 15, 16, 17, those days when it was kind of the beginnings before everything kind of blew up.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask, I was like, is that a real person, dude?
Or
was
funny.
that like...
that might be next time you bring me on the podcast with Jared, I'll let him speak on Pete Rosenberg. That's funny.
Noted. So like I mentioned earlier, I know you through Marcus.
Yes.
I kind of want to talk about like the relationship with Marcus, and how did you meet Marcus?
Yeah, that is something I love that story. So I actually met Marcus I had a little part-time job at Mesa Community College.
Yeah, so he was working at MCC at the time.
We were both just part-time. We were going to college, and I was doing the touring stuff, and they were really flexible with my touring schedule, so it was cool. So I met him there, and he was always really down to earth, right?
Yeah.
And he was like really humble.
Yeah.
Okay? Because I didn't know he was a rapper until one day I was like in there like showing somebody else one of my raps, and he's like, "You rap?" And I was like, "Yeah, bro, it's whatever, you know, it's low key, you know." And he's like, "I rap too." And I was like, I was expecting him to kind of be like on my level, like, you know, just like super like A, B, A, you know, super simple lines. And he's like, "Hey, why don't you come by my place? We'll have some beers and stuff."
At the lake house.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. This is way back then. So I was like, "Cool, bro, I'll bring my buddy Kevin with me." Like, so we'll go over there. So one night we go over there, bring like a 12-pack. And he's like, "Yeah, check out some of my raps, bro." And I was blown away.
Yeah.
When I was like, wait, this dude's like actually rapping, and he's like unbelievably good, bro.
Yeah. Doing it all himself too.
Right. Which is super cool. Right. And I remember Kevin was sitting behind me, and I like looked at him when he first started playing it, and Kevin's face was just like, "This dude's good, dude. This dude's good." So
I love that.
It went from me like trying to be like, "Hey, do a song with me," to like, "Dude, like, let me like come to your show. Like, this is dope." Like, I do not want to like rain on your parade. Although me and teammate Marcus do have a couple of unreleased tracks.
What?
Yeah, we might have to put those out in the world.
I'll have to talk to him about
It's just so funny though, because I would always be like, "Yo, you're gonna have to go after me, bro," because like I cannot follow up with you. And he was always so, you know, it's funny. He was always so like confident and like kind about it. You know, like he was never like judging my rap. He would be like, "Dude, hey, try this and this, like to make me a better rapper." But he's so good, man. He is really has a gift.
For sure, man. And yeah, I mean, that's one of my best friends ever, man. So it's to see his progression from those days, because I met him in 2016, 2015.
Yeah, you might have met him right before I did.
Yeah, I met him in 2015. Yeah, that's when it was.
And you know what's really cool about Marcus, kind of unrelated to music, is he was always so like about like it's almost like a family to him. All his friends were family. That's kind of what his name stems from, teammate.
Yeah, everyone was teammates.
Exactly.
And it was everyone was like teammate and then their name.
Yeah, dude.
It was like he was just teammate Marcus because his name is Marcus.
I know.
Which is so funny. Then he stylized it with the K.
Yeah.
But and he was always doing stuff himself, and they would make like joke songs and stuff, and they would just like rap on stuff, and he would always take last verse for the same reasons. Just like
he was just so
it's like you can't come in first verse and then everyone else is just shitting on it.
I know. Yeah. But he was always so cool about introducing me to his crew, and that's how I met you and all of you know, the friends you guys still have today, which I think is so cool.
Yeah.
Because all of those people that he surrounded himself with were so kind. And I remember for like a short period when I wasn't on tour, we would all meet up and like party and stuff. And it was always like such a family vibe, you know. At that time, he was still just doing the rap stuff. And it was always love. You guys would always come to the Weslynn shows. And when Marcus would have a show, we would all support. It was a really cool time. And I felt like really like a good music community around me. And it was like all music, whether I was like, you know, in the rap game on the side, a little bit dabbling my feet, or you guys were supporting my group, which was really cool, man.
For sure. And I mean,
thank you for that, by the way.
Of course, man. Absolutely. And that's like, when I say like we got deep roots, it's like, it goes back to those days when like I first moved out here, you know, that was like a couple years into my time out here. And then we ended up meeting Amy through you guys.
Yeah, which is funny,
then
full circle.
She ended up like managing us, and then now still their manager to this day.
And taking them to all new heights, which is amazing.
Insane, dude. And to like see the growth of everyone around us, it's the classic story of like seeing people grow with you and no one ever gives up.
No.
And I love hearing that. Like a lot of people that I've been watching and listening to a lot of like stand-up comedians lately, and I feel like a lot of them have a similar story where they were all going to the same clubs, playing the same shows, doing the same open mics and stuff in like New York and LA, and then they all end up growing and blowing up together to now, you know, being 10 years in the game, and they're all huge. They all got their own podcasts, and then they talk about each other, knowing each other for this long. And I think that's kind of like the same thing that I relate to with you guys and Marcus, and even the other guys in this modern, you know, how they had their own story, like Sean and Tim, like they starting and kind of seeing everyone's progression, but then rise all together.
You know what I think that is? I think that when you think of music, it's community.
For sure.
And it's that's just how it always has been and how it probably always will be in its community. And I think that's funny you say that, because I told you my full circle story about David, who, went on to produce our work. You were making beats for Marcus.
Yes. Yeah. And I was his DJ.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like I played a Juicy J show with him.
Yeah, dude, I was there. And Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Yeah. And the Bone Thugs show was after we had created the band around Marcus. So we were playing with, the live bass. I was on live bass. Ricky was on guitar. So cool. Sean was playing drums. But yeah, the Juicy J show, that was like one of the last shows that it was at Livewire. Yeah. Now Sky Lanes or whatever. In Old Town. Old Town, it was that double layer. And I'll never forget, that was like one of the first shows where it was like sold out, lying around the building. Crazy. Like had our own green room, and we were like, whoa, this is nuts. Happening. Yeah. This is nuts. And like they had me on like a DJ thing off to the side, and I was like on a shitty board and stuff like that. But it was just like, we were really doing it. And I feel like in those times, we actually, like I told you last week, we recorded kind of a shoot the shit episode that's going to be releasing on Monday.
Okay.
But we were kind of talking about how those times were the best times, because we weren't worried about money. We weren't worried about analytics. We weren't worried about like anybody else's opinions. We just were making stuff to make it, and we loved it. And it was like, those were the early days, man. And I feel like those were the best times of our lives. You know what I'm saying?
No, I agree 1000%. And to tie it back to my story, I think when we were under that label, that's kind of when it didn't feel like an artistry anymore. Yeah. It felt like a job and analytics and all those things that you had just mentioned, which really kind of was grueling on our souls, right? Because the music to us has always been something special. We didn't have an algorithm or a songwriting formula. It was like, this is what we're going through in our lives. We're going to write it down and turn it into a song. If it's catchy, it's catchy. But like our earlier stuff, you can listen to it. It wasn't like your standard like format of a song, right? Like like Shining Night didn't have a chorus. Like it, you know what I mean? So when we had the label, it really kind of changed things. And the cool thing about what we're doing now, which is all independent, right? Like I'm mixing and mastering, and we're doing it all ourselves, is that artistry is back. That sense of realness is back. And I think that's kind of what's so inspiring and what we look forward to keep doing. And I don't know, if another label approached us, I don't know if we would take that, just for the fear of losing that originality. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It'd have to be more so like a partnership thing, where it's like less of like a taking over. It's more like maybe they help you with distribution and that's it,
or publishing,
or publishing. Yeah. Exactly. And then the deal has to be right. I think that's a really good point, especially now that you've already had that negative experience.
Exactly.
That it's just
I'm
like
jaded.
Yeah, for sure. You get jaded because like how far it can go in the wrong direction.
Fast.
Yeah, and like and to touch on that as well, like in those times when we were hanging out at the Lake House days, and we talked about this last week too with Marcus, how like back in the day when everyone was together, we were always just like smoking all the time, and like we were saying how like we would smoke and we would be as high as we could, and we would just keep smoking because everyone had weed, and like there was 7 of us at the crib, and it was nuts, and like we would go out like every weekend, and like you were part of the group where I tell this to a lot of people, where back in the days when like Tim would show up with the half gallon, and then we would just go shot, and then go out to Casey Moore's for like 3 hours, and then just like close the bars down.
Obliterated, dude.
Every weekend, and it was crazy, just because it was something to do.
Yeah, and we could.
And it was fun, and like we always enjoyed our time, and and like we had some super late nights and crazy things, especially like I remember me, you, Marcus, and Timo, and Kevin might have been there for a few of those as well. And for sure, I never saw Jared out there.
No, Jared was always the responsible, quiet one. Well, he got married pretty early and started a family. And looking back now, I kind of wish that I might have slowed down a little sooner too. Yeah. Because it got pretty hard there at the end. And I've got a story too to tell you about Marcus really quick. But that right around that same time, Marcus was just always ready to hang out. And it was just like, you knew it was like a Thursday or Friday night, we were going to meet up. And we ended up going to Devil's Advocate one night.
Oh,
and
classic Tempe bar.
Right. And we were drinking like before we even got there. And I had somehow linked up with my buddy who had given me some like tranquilizers. And I remember going to Marcus and being like, yo, Marcus, I got some fucking like dolphin tranquilizers. Cause that's what he had asked Marcus this story. We got some like dolphin tranquilizers. Yo. And I don't even think we were planning on taking them, bro, but we got so fucked up that night. I think we ended up taking them. And like, I remember at the end of the night, like we looked at each other and I was like, dude, we just took some like dolphin tranquilizer. I don't even know where this fucker got it from, bro. And ask him about the dolphin tranquilizer story.
At the end of that, you're like,
yeah. Dude, that next day, I never felt more like wrong. Like that was probably like the first time I was like, dude, fuck, I need to slow down.
Yeah,
bro.
it's getting heavy. Yeah, it's like, I mean, and that kind of goes to show you like, even when we were fucked up, it was like always trying to push it to like just get more and more and more to the point where we're going to bed at 4 a.m. type shit. Like, okay, guys, like the sun is coming up.
And that I couldn't even count how many nights. I can't even remember because I can't remember, right? Because I was so fucked up. But you know, that's part of the reason that I'm sober now. So,
right. Congratulations, man. You were saying before the pod that it's been about 2 years now, right?
Yeah, over 2 years, man.
So was the pandemic kind of when you were kind of going in it still?
Yeah,
like you were still in it, especially because at that point, Weslynn wasn't making music. You were still trying to find yourself and like without the music, and kind of speak on that. Like what was the turning point for you?
Yeah. So right around that time, I kind of noticed that I was starting to drink more like alone, and it was like really sad. You know, I was feeling really like depressed, and drinking kind of towards the end kind of made me feel more and more depressed. And, you know, it was such a weird shift to be on the road for so long to just be stuck at home, not really making music. And what else is there to do? You know what I mean? I was kind of living off of whatever I had left over from Weslynn at the time, which wasn't much, and waiting for those royalty checks to show up and, you know, just drinking. And I kind of noticed like, you know, this is starting to get to the point where it's not like making me feel like I'm having fun anymore.
Yeah.
So I decided that, you know, I was going to quit drinking. And then I kind of started drinking more socially again.
Yeah.
And then at a point, I was starting to notice that when I wasn't drinking, I was feeling more creative and more like aligned and in tune with myself. So I eventually made the full decision to just cut it out completely.
Wow.
But yeah.
Was it one of those where you went cold turkey, or did you kind of wean off of it?
Well,
kind of like
I would say cold turkey, because when I say I was still drinking socially, I was still drinking like 4 or 5 times a week.
Right.
But nothing like I was during the pandemic. Like that was bad. So then, yeah, I would say I cut it off cold turkey. And was just like, you know, the 3 or 4 nights that I am drinking, like it's not bringing me any benefit.
Right.
I'm getting more harm the next day by like, because I got to the point where I was like drinking 2 beers and like I'd feel it the next day. I guess that's getting older.
Yeah.
You know, like, damn, I had 3 beers. I can tell my head hurts. So I was just like, it's not doing anything for me. So I was just like, I'm better off without it. And it originally was going to be like a 6 month, maybe a year off just to see how I felt. And I consistently felt better and better and better. And I was just like, it's just not for me. I'm better off without it.
Yeah. And honestly, to make that decision at still a pretty young age at the time, because you weren't even 30 at the time, right?
No.
So it was like right before your 30s. And like, that's, I think, the best way to do it, rather than being 50 years old, drinking for 30 years and then trying to go stone cold sober. Like that's when it gets tough, and you've already done the damage in a way.
No.
So I think that was really grown up of you to do. And I'm sure it was tough because, like, you know, still people drink around you, and to like having to almost change your friend group in a way, but like the associates that like you associate yourself with, but like, or just being strong-willed in a sense of just like, you guys can keep drinking, but I'm gonna be drinking this water, maybe like a little seltzer water with a lime. You
I'm
know?
on the LaCroix hard, bro. If you sponsor me, if you can. I'm drinking like 4 of those a day. But no, you're spot on, 1000% correct. I think that was a shift, right? Because the cool thing, like Jared, he was never really a big drinker, right? So I noticed that when I kind of quit, it was easier to kind of like surround myself with him a little bit more, because those first few months were kind of weird. Like I would notice that I was anxious when like going out to like a bar to go catch like a band or someone that I knew that was playing live. And like everyone there would be drinking, and I noticed that like it was still hard. So I kind of pulled myself out of that scene for a little while till I could get my bearings straight.
Yeah.
And the cool thing was like all of my friends have always been so supportive, and I have a really good, strong support system. My fiance at home, she's just been like awesome about, you know, supporting me and not drinking. She was never really a big drinker. So it's really easy to be around her, right? And then like, you know, Kevin's obviously slowed down too. I don't think Kevin really parties near as much as he used to. He was my partner in crime.
Yeah, I remember like you guys would influence each other.
Oh, we would feed off of each other. It was so bad, bro. We would call each other next day and be like, "What's your liver at?" And he's like, "I'm at a 10, bro. I'm cooked, bro. I ain't going out for a while." But so they've been really supportive, and my group around me and my support group has just been, you know, rock solid about my sobriety, and I'm really proud of myself, and it feels good. And I'm in a much better place creativity wise and just emotionally. So it's been nothing but good things for me since quitting.
I love that, man. And you talk about your fiance and congratulations on getting
Thank
engaged,
you.
bro. I mean, it's been a little bit of time now, but so wedding's probably coming up soon.
Right. I'll have to let you know about that. We got a date set, November of 2024. So we'll have to
definitely let
me
know, bro.
Yeah.
Please.
We're still going through all the planning and stuff, but yeah, thank you. It's been good, man. I feel like I'm really grown up now.
For sure.
Like
man,
domesticated and shit. Like I got a Dyson vacuum the other day.
And it was exciting.
Bro, I was so stoked. I don't know if you saw my post on that, but I was just shitting on everyone. I was like, dude, if you still have first of all, a corded vacuum and or a Dyson, like get right, bro. It changed my life. My house is like dust free, bro.
Yeah, so that's the Dyson Ball or whatever?
Yeah, dude, I got the V11, bro. I got so much suction out of that thing. It's crazy, bro. It's like a V11, bro. It's like a Corvette engine in there, dude.
Yo, the people that you, or the things that you get excited about as like an adult is so
30s,
funny.
I know, dude. It's crazy, bro. Because like, I don't really get out much anymore, you know, since I'm not drinking. And I think that's just with age. Like, I'm sure you don't go out as much as you used to. It's just what's out there, right? You've seen it and done it all.
Yeah.
So now I've kind of found myself like really diving into like different things. Like I told you I'm doing mixing and mastering now. So I've kind of found myself that guy that's like scoundering the offer ups and the reverbs for vintage gear and stuff like that. And vacuum cleaners apparently as well.
Yeah, man. So, so it is cool that you've had the support system of your girlfriend at the time, like when you were starting to get sober, and then she ends up becoming your fiance. Like, that's such a beautiful story that you guys have kind of gone through that together in a way.
Thank you.
But yeah, moving into kind of like things after that break in 2020 and 2021 and getting back into the music, man. I want to talk about like coming back into Weslynn.
Yes.
Because that's you guys just started releasing music again over the last like 6 months.
Yes, correct.
So that's been something that I'm sure you guys have been talking about for a long time since the pandemic, and trying to figure out how it was going to look, what it was going to feel like, where you were going to record it and all that stuff. And just talk about like the coming back, and when did it officially come through where it's just like you, Jared, and Kevin coming together and be like, all right, we're doing this again.
Yeah. So like we had said, we started getting back together like kind of pandemic time, and came up with some pretty cool material. And then I'm one of those people that believes everything happens for a reason, right?
For sure.
And when the lockdown happened, it kind of gave us a time to kind of get away from each other again. And when we decided we wanted to get back together, we said, well, all those songs that we started writing like during the pandemic time, let's just sit on those and let's get back together. We've all matured some, and we just went straight into writing. And it was crazy because I came to Jared with a song, Nights Like Last, which was kind of, I guess you'd say, the single of the EP. And then Jared didn't even tell me, but he had been writing some stuff too on the side, the song Riptide, which is actually blowing up right now in the Philippines. So shout out to all of you guys in the Philippines. Thank you in Manila. Keep playing it. It's awesome. It feels good to know that people are still out there listening, you know?
Yeah.
But so anyway, so we like came together again, and it felt different this time, right? Because pre-pandemic, it was just kind of hanging out again, like let's get our feet wet. But this felt real. Like these songs felt like they were special. Yeah. And I kind of said like, hey, if we're going to do this, I think maybe we should try a different approach. Instead of trying to come up with money and taking it to a producer, let's do it all ourselves. And I think that like made a light turn on for Jared, because he got so hyped.
Yeah.
And was like, I've been wanting to do this way for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think right around that time I was getting sober, and I could see that he could tell I was just super hyper focused. I was driven. I was hungry again. I wanted to get back into that and feel those feelings of putting out material I could stand behind. So I think it just kind of fired him up. And Kevin, he just wants to play drums, right? He wants to make music. So we kind of fired up, all like we were firing each other up. Yeah. It felt natural. So we said, well, if we're doing it ourselves, someone's got to mix and master it. And I was like, I'll do it.
Fuck yes.
Right. So I went down this rabbit hole. I bought the books. I went down the YouTube stuff. I took some master classes and stuff, and was like, okay, let's do it. So we were recording all of the stuff at Jared's new house that he had bought bought an awesome pad, bro. And we kind of built a studio up in there. So we would go over there and kind of write and then record. And then we kind of found a system that worked for us. Like let Jared do his part. He sent it to Kevin to put the drums on. And then they sent it to me for mix and mastering. And I just like, I fell in love with it. Like I loved the science behind it and like making frequencies work with each other and making the song sound however I wanted it to, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of had that freedom too being in the band. Like if I didn't like something that Jared did, I could just, okay, I'm going to plug this in and redo it, right? I have that freedom.
Overdubs. Yeah.
Exactly. So when we did that and we kind of bounced like the first like demos to each other, like, dude, this is dope. Like, let's do this. So full circle, we reached out to Amy who helped us with the release. And she took care of us, and, you know, just because we had been out of the game so long, like, what's a release look like? Do people release albums on Tuesdays still? Like, what does that look like? We don't know. And she took us, you know, she got us right and helped us with the release. And she was so kind and, you know, and gave me great feedback and was like, hey, you know, I didn't know you mixed this. This sounds incredible. Like, you should give yourself a pat on the back. Cause like I had only been doing it for like 6 months on the side.
Yeah.
So that was like my first thing. And what's funny now is like looking back at those new releases, I'm like, damn, I should have done this and this and this. But you and I were talking about that. Like, that's kind of how artistry and being creative is. Like, you're always going to go up, right?
Yeah, man. And it's cool that it kind of came full circle in the sense where like you hit up Amy again because you were one of her first acts. And then she was probably super excited to hear like,
it was special.
You're back.
She's always loved us and our music and our style. So it did feel full circle. And it's crazy to see like now she's like the big shot in town. You know, artists are like begging to get with her to have them like, you know, on her roster. And it's like, well, we're the wash ups coming back. Like, hey, well, you got any time for us? But she took care of us, man. And
you just hit her directly.
Yeah, I hit the direct line. Yeah, no, she took care of us though. And she's been an awesome support and the release is still doing really well. And we've actually got a couple more songs in the woodworks right now. That's slate for a late January release. We got a 2-song kind of single, I guess they're calling them now.
Yeah.
That we're going to put out that I mixed and mastered.
Yo.
And we've got some really cool stuff in 2024 that we're really excited for. Full band stuff. Not sure about what playing out live looks like just yet. I think we want to build our catalog up a little bit and kind of get some new material, but a lot of new songs that we're really excited.
Yeah, man. I think it probably feels really good for you to almost have that pride of like, I made this, rather because sometimes when you go to a producer, it's just more so like, oh, well, they did this.
I recorded
it's
it.
Like I recorded it.
And they did
I mixed it. I mastered it. Like everything was in-house. And that's always, you know, the DIY mindset has always been kind of, even like in the early Teammate Marcus days, that's what we were. We were DIY until we die. Like barely using any samples. Everything was recorded. And it was just like being able to feel that like, I made this 100% is just something like nothing.
You know, I agree with you. And I think it's so interesting too in the industry now, you're seeing more of that.
Yeah.
So you guys were kind of ahead of your time.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, because it almost felt like you needed to get studio time for what we were doing to get like a decent sound. Like the joke was you didn't want to sound like a local band, but you guys were ahead of it. And it's funny now you see on like YouTube and all these like influencers, they're all doing it independently now.
For sure.
It's almost like these major labels, like unless you're like The Weeknd or someone massive, like these groups are doing it independently and doing a very good job with it.
Yeah, and what happens now is the independent artist builds themselves up. Yeah. And then the labels come to you as a partnership.
After they've done all the hard work. Let's take care of you.
Exactly.
But hey, nothing wrong with that. If it works for both parties, then do it, you know?
Yeah, and that's kind of like, I mean, I appreciate you saying like we were ahead of our time. It's almost like at the time we were doing it because that's all we knew and that's like, it's all we could do. You know, like we didn't have access to the studios and like even working with Sean, that wasn't something that came until, you know, we had already been doing it. Like I was doing it myself for a certain amount of time and then Marcus was doing it himself for a certain amount of time. So going into it, we already knew how we wanted to sound, but then kind of giving the reins to someone that went to Crass, because Sean went to Crass as well. So it was kind of like to a professional, you know, to
for sure.
at least to our standards, you know, like he had a full studio at Mind's Eye and stuff, and to kind of make that change. And I was talking to him last week too on this episode that's going to drop, how we were doing a lot of the fusion music where we were adding in live instruments, and I remember like back in the day, like we were genre blending. A lot.
For sure.
You know, where we were adding in like rock elements and then rap stuff, and then no one knew how to categorize us at the time. And it was so frustrating for us at the time because it was almost like it was hard for us to get placements because like we were too rock for the rap guys and we were too rap for the rock guys.
I know that time period, yeah.
And it was so frustrating, but now that's what everyone does.
Isn't
and then
it
they
funny?
just call it pop and then it's okay and you get on the charts.
Isn't it funny, man? You guys were like way ahead.
It's crazy.
It's crazy how music works like that, you know?
Yeah.
But hey, you guys did it. And I really thought all of the stuff you guys were doing, especially when you brought in that full band element, it was so cool. It was so different.
Yeah.
And I remember at one of the shows I was at, I was like looking around at the people and like, dude, this is cool. Like to kind of get that like hip hop vibe, but with that full band energy.
Yeah.
It was special. And that's still what Marcus is doing today in a sense.
Yeah,
which is really
absolutely.
cool.
Yeah. I mean, what this modern is today is very much fusion rock.
Right.
So
for
it's
sure.
just like they're not just a rock band. Like they have those elements of like singing and then also the rapping, you know, and that's always been Marcus's bag. And even if it's like a little bit more melodic, it's still fusion.
Yeah.
And so I don't think those roots have ever really left them, but they've kind of dialed it in a little bit more. But it's cool to like almost have had that experience. And I'm so thankful that we went through those growing pains. And because it, like I was saying last week with him, like it's made us into the artists we are today. And we're not afraid to take risks. We're not afraid to genre blend. We're not, because we already been doing this for so long. And it's like when everyone else is doing it, it's just like, we've been doing this.
You kind of lose that fear. I totally understand what you're saying. And especially with kind of doing it independently as we all are now, it kind of makes that fear kind of go away, right? Because you feel like you have a little bit more control. And I totally agree with everything you said, man. It's cool. And it feels really good to be doing it again, man.
For sure, man. And we were kind of talking about, the mixing and mastering stuff.
Yes.
So you kind of started doing it with the Weslynn stuff, but now you're branching out and kind of trying to take on other acts and other groups and artists as well as like mixing and mastering. And I just want to talk about how that's going and how you're learning and how it's almost challenging you to become a better engineer.
That's the big thing. I like that word in bold, challenging.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. It's been exciting. I kind of felt a love for it when I first started doing the Weslynn EP. I was like, this is cool. I really like this. Like I'm enjoying it. It felt new to me. Because I was never really into it when I was the artist, right? Yeah. And now I kind of got this sense for it that I really enjoyed. And so I kind of said, well, after the Weslynn stuff, I'm going to maybe reach out and network. And of course, I reached out to Amy and said, hey, if you have anybody, put me in touch. And of course, she gave me some referrals. But yeah, I started looking at some other artists and stuff. And I really like it. I think it's so cool to kind of put my own spin on it. Every mix engineer has their own like niche, right? Their sound. And I kind of want to build mine. So I'm still kind of finding my footing. I've gotten an opportunity to work with a couple of artists. I worked with someone on their debut called Crooked Truths, which is on Spotify and all your, digital platforms.
Handle right here.
Yeah, there you go. It's a really cool song and it's really different. It came out right around Halloween. So it kind of has like a spooky vibe on it. And I got to really use a lot of cool tools on it to kind of give it like my spin. I really like analog sound, right? So I really like, the old stuff from the 80s, like the SSL 4000 consoles and stuff. So I found a way to kind of put my like modern spin on that. And I've really been enjoying it. So I think in 2024, like between all the Weslynn stuff that we've got, I would really like to kind of make a focus on maybe finding some new clients and maybe making that like a side hustle for myself, because I really love it. And it's a good way to stay into the music industry, without having to tour and, put your own stuff out there full time. So we'll see how it goes.
For sure, man. And it's almost like you can generate income while also sharpening the saw for your artistry at the same time. And
only getting better every time you mix a song, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And especially like we were talking about earlier, how you're doing like different genres and like doing electronic music and like that's a different animal altogether when you come from a band kind of setting, live instruments stuff versus synthesizers and 808s.
No, I was going to say
different.
Right, because being a guitar player, like I can get a guitar to sound pretty good, anywhere. But when I got one of these, I'm working on a lo-fi thing right now for a buddy of mine, and I was like, this is like, you want me to make it sound bad? Like I didn't understand that. Like I was like, I really want clarity and like really high fidelity. And he's like, no, put it through all your tape emulation, like make it sound crunchy. And I was like, okay, yeah. So, but what you were saying though, that's how you get better, right? Is kind of taking yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit and trying new things. Because at a point, if I keep just doing Weslynn stuff and, you know, pop rock and alt rock, I'm going to probably hit a ceiling.
Yeah.
But this is a great way for me to get better and, you know, hone into my craft and sharpen my saw, like you said.
Absolutely, man. And I love that term, the sharpening of the saw. And it's like something that I've read in a book before. I can't remember exactly what book, but that's kind of when you're doing things like that, you're just sharpening your saw, making yourself better. So that way, you know, it's like, it's almost putting in the, like paying your dues, you know, like putting in the work to become a better version of yourself. That's really, at the end of the day, that's what it is. And you're putting in that work with other artists so that way you can become a better artist yourself.
Oh, for sure.
And I think an artist in the sense of like recording artist, but then also an artist just in music as like a creative person, you know, in music. That's, you know, because I think an engineer is an artist in like the grand scheme of things, like, because it's a creative act is engineering. And I watched when I first started recording myself back in 2018, 19, around those times when I was like, I had left the band, and it was like one of those things where I was also trying to find myself as an artist. And I watched one of the best videos I've ever seen. It was like an old college class. It was called The Art of Mixing. And I actually have the book that was the actual like college course, but then that kind of pairs with the video. It's kind of an old school video, and it's funny because it's kind of trippy, and like they had like bunch of little things and transitions that are like super educational, but it's also kind of trippy because it was made in like the 90s or something like that. But it talks about like the fundamentals, and the way that they explain it is like it's a box. And basically they talk about how equalization, you know, it's the top to bottom. So like if you're looking at like a 3-dimensional space, it's high frequencies at the top, low frequencies at the bottom. And then if you're talking about panning, that's the left to the right. And then you have volume, which is the front to the back. So it's almost like using those 3 parameters alone will get you a solid mix. And within all the other stuff is everything else. And that's when people say like in the box, it's like even back in the days when they were doing analog stuff, it was like almost like the visual representation of where everything sat. So it's almost like if you're looking at it and like hearing it with headphones on, you hear things happening on the left, you hear things happening on the right, you hear things happening on top, you hear things happening on bottom. And that's like when people say like the vocals on top, it's like because they're above all of the other frequencies. And that's why you add these certain these things in equalization to be able to boost these things, cut these things out, so that way the things like, for instance, the kick and the bass have the lower frequencies and they're occupying that space. And then like the vocals are kind of sitting on top, literally and, you know, figuratively. But it's like almost when I started visualizing mixing in that way, where it's like a space in front of me, and it's almost like from the top of the speakers to the floor. That's the box
that you have to stay within.
Because it's like
I like that
the tweeters are like the top, and then like the floor, the sub, that's
your
the
bass,
the floor. So it's kind of like you can literally start hearing things. And I always remembered as a kid hearing like mixing, especially like early Beatles records and early rock records, where they were very intentional about placement.
Mono,
well, even like when they started splitting it, where it was just like only guitar and backup vocals were on the left.
It was almost
and
trippy, right?
Drums were on the right. And I remember like sometimes you could take out one headphone and you wouldn't even hear the other stuff.
Could you imagine being alive in like the early 60s when that was happening and be like, what is going on? Like this was so foreign to people. Like those people that literally had mono setups, right? Like the whole Yamaha speaker was it. So when the Beatles started coming out and changing things, like people were like, what's going on? What a trippy time that was. But yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying. And I think the thing that I find craziest about the whole mixing process is you have the freedom to make it work, right? If someone came to me with like a project or a session that had like, he's like, I want to do something new. I'm going to have like 4 different 808s going off at the same time. Like, there's no right or wrong in music. If somebody wanted to do that, you could do that. The hard part is just making it fit within that box, like you mentioned. And I like that. That's the challenge, right? That's the excitement of getting something that I didn't really have too much of a hand in with the recording process and making it translate to speakers across the world.
For sure. No, 100%, man. It's almost like, and starting with like equalization, volume, and panning.
That's
you
all you
start
need.
with those three things, and then
toolbox.
everything else, when you talk about compression, when you talk about saturation, reverb, echo, all of those things almost accentuate and almost like go into the details of those three main. So it's almost like the micro versus the macro.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like macro being the equalization, volume, and panning, the micro being all the other effects. And like those little things that you can start to add color or certain type of things and specific placement, or even to spread and do like stereo spread and stuff like that, and do that on purpose, you know. And I think that's when you start to get into the nitty gritty of it, and that's the art. And that's what I mean when I say like engineers are artists. Like that's the art of mixing.
I've got one last idea on that whole subject, and someone told me this. I forget who it was. I might have read it on Reddit, but I saw something that said, like, if you record a song and send it to 10 different mix engineers, you're going to get pretty much like
10
almost
different songs.
Exactly. Almost. You will.
Yeah.
Because they're going to put their own spin on it and how they hear it and how that translates to within that box, like you talked about. And I think it's so fascinating.
Yeah,
you know?
It very much is. And I love that you said that, because I think that's a very good point.
Yeah.
And that's like, what's cool about that is like, you can hear things now that you're doing that other producers or engineers might not have done. And it's, that's probably super fulfilling.
Yeah.
And I obviously, I'm in videography and photography and stuff like that too. So I've had this conversation with a few different other photographers where I've had this idea that might be cool, and I still kind of want to do it. I just don't know how to execute it yet, but almost creating an event where it's multiple subjects, and you bring 5 or 6 photographers to the same event, and they all shoot the subject different, you know, in their own way.
Yeah.
And then you just like display all of their different takes on the same subject.
Same thing. That's fascinating.
You know,
man.
and like, and whether that be, at the time I was thinking doing specifically film.
Yeah.
So it's just like, give them the same exact film stock. They can use whatever camera they want. They can use whatever, like, has to be like natural lighting or like a specific lighting where all the lighting is the same for everyone, but the angle is going to be different, and like the shutter speeds or apertures that they choose to use, totally on them. So all like the little detailed stuff, totally on them to use their own creative minds, but having the exact same subject with the exact same lighting in the exact same setting.
Fascinating.
I think that would be so interesting to see 5 or 6 different works that end up, you know, like it just, they look like different pieces.
They're going to be, they're going to look different, but it's the same, like almost moment. You know what I mean? That's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing we were talking about. Like, you're going to get 10 different sets of eyes versus 10 different ears, right?
For sure.
And you're going to get something a little different. That's really cool.
Yeah. I've seen, and it's funny because I had that idea back in 2020 when I first started shooting film with my homie David. And, I've seen over the last like 2 years, I've seen digital photographers on Instagram. Well, they'll have the same exact photo, and they basically send it to 5 or 6 different photographers and tell them to edit it.
Oh, wow.
So it's almost like seeing different styles of editing versus like the picture being taken differently. It's like the exact same photo, but then you edit it in different ways, add different details and stuff like that, and totally different pictures all together. Like colors look different, saturation is different, contrast is different, exposure is different. People like really like, and that's another art right there in photography, is like the digital editing side of photography.
And you know what's really cool about that? I guarantee you, if you had 5 different people edit those pictures, whoever saw it might like a different one better.
Exactly.
Right? And that just shows you taste versus creative taste versus like a consumer taste. And I think that's so cool. You know, everybody has like a niche, and I think that's so cool.
That's why the content worked so well, because you know, the comments were flooded with 5, 2, you know, and then like everyone's like 2 or whatever, and then it's cool because then they tag all the photographers in it.
That's really
cool. It was like, when I saw that, I was like, yes, exactly. Like, that's how you can almost show that this stuff is art in its own way. Creative, where it's like, where everyone's going to look at things differently, and it's parallels, you know, like the parallels of that with the music. It's 100% the exact same
I was just going to say, with any creative, like, there's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like mathematics. It's taste.
For sure.
And there's something out there for everyone.
Yeah, I agree, man. And I think there's certain limitations where it's like there's like ways like fundamentally to do certain things, but I think a lot of that comes down to like the shooting more so.
Yeah.
So I feel like the setup and the lighting and those fundamental things that if those aren't in place, then it might not be the best product. And I think that's like the stuff that they teach you in photography class, like about like about shutter speed and about aperture and about lighting and all those things
the rule
that
of
are
thirds.
the rule of thirds, composition. That's what that is, composition. So it's just like all of those that are almost, they're like guidelines in a way, but then everything else is all creative, like everything else.
Work around those things.
For sure.
Exactly.
But I think the introduction of digital photography, that kind of washed things away a little bit too, because like you can take, as long as you have some of those guidelines in check, like you can really manipulate photos to be amazing, even if like you kind of shit the bed on the execution of it.
It really gives you a lot of freedom, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's the same thing with like recording on like tape versus going into like a software, right?
100%.
You can totally go back and edit things, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of another reason we were talking about, like you kind of admire the 60s and 70s music because they didn't really have too many chances to kind of go back.
Yeah. And if they did, they had to not only record it again, but they had to do it like together.
Yeah.
like so it's just like when they were doing full band recordings, it was like, I'm sure that was so frustrating on both sides of the space, because like behind the glass, the engineer was like, God damn it, we're running out of tape. And I only have like one more
6
reel
hours
left.
later,
6 hours later. And like the bassist keeps fucking up, or the fucking guitarist missed his thing, or like the drummer got behind or something.
The tension in those rooms back then. I mean, if you think about like Fleetwood Mac in the 70s, like have you ever heard the story about the Rumors album?
No.
It's their most like commercialized, like the music like snobs say it's one of the best written and recorded albums ever, right? Like and people didn't know this until after the fact, but the band was literally about to kill each other at this time because Stevie Nicks and I think Lindsey Buckingham, their guitarist, were having like an affair. But then like he was ex-husbands with somebody else. Like they were at each other's throats and they were like having a hard time with drugs and drinking at that time as well. So all of these factors were in play and they somehow made one of the most famous and amazing albums ever. But to just be a fly in that room during that time would have been interesting.
To feel the tension and just be like, you can just cut it with a knife. But what was to that point, I think the emotion probably fueled the performance.
For sure. If you go and listen to some of those songs, I think the one that comes to my mind is The Chain. You can hear the angst and the tension. And I think when I read that and I heard that story and I went back and listened to the album, it like made sense. I heard it differently.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is cool. Now it's even cooler, right?
Yeah, dude.
So it's crazy.
It almost brings you into their headspace.
Right, for sure.
Yo,
it does.
I love that.
Listen to it.
No, I will for sure, dude. I never really got into Fleetwood Mac, but obviously, I've heard it's one of those bands where like if I hear the song, I'd be like, oh yeah, I know that song. But I wouldn't be able to say or like what the name was, or maybe even like not even necessarily know it's Fleetwood Mac, but I know the song, like one of those artists.
Yeah.
But and like around that time, I feel like that the recording process was so different. And it was like they were doing 8 tracks, and stuff like that, and having to do things on tape, splice the tape, and like actually with the razor blade and like all that stuff, like the same way that they used to produce films back in the day, when they didn't have digital videography. So like the analog stuff, it was almost like you had to have that shit down before you got to the studio.
Oh, you needed to be prepared.
You need to be prepared.
You know, what's funny you say that, I kind of noticed, and I'm sure you've been an artist for a long time and you've dabbled in mixing and mastering, so I'm sure you kind of have the same sentiment I do, but I always like it. I listen to music differently now in a way.
For sure.
And it's almost a curse, right? Because before I'd listen to a song and I'm like, oh, it's a great catchy song. I like the riff they did on the guitar. But now it's like, I'm like finding myself being like, pretentious, like, why did they do that with the kick drum? Was that purposeful, or do you think that he just didn't get that frequency right? And I'm sure you kind of hear that too when you're listening to music now, right?
Absolutely. And I think what I hear a lot more now is placement, where I think of songs in that box, that realm of the top to bottom, left to right, front to back. So I hear I hear volume different. I hear equalization different. I hear panning choices and creative decisions like that. I hear a lot of that, and layering. I hear a lot of like layering differently, where it's like hearing the vocal tracks and how many tracks they got, listening to where they place the harmonies, listen to how much reverb they have. Do they have reverb on all the tracks, and little things like that, where I hear things a little bit more analytically in a way.
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, so it is kind of like a gift and a curse, and I feel like it's ultimately like makes us better at what we do, because we
hearing more of it. Yeah, exactly.
Almost hear the examples of other people that are actually doing this at a high level and being able to almost dissect it.
Yes, that's the perfect word. I find myself, I got some crazy like gear at home, right? Like I've got speakers all, like my bedroom looks like a guitar center, dude. It's crazy, dude.
I love that.
But I'll find myself listening to like Harry Styles, for example, his new album.
Oh my God. Harry Styles?
Yeah.
I love that album,
Me
dude.
too.
It's so good.
They recorded it in California. I forget the name of the studio, but it's a super famous. I think it's I'll have to look into it. But
the engineers are working on that. So fucking good.
Exactly.
Dude. Yeah.
So I kind of find myself getting lost in listening to that and dissecting it, and it's like I can't find anything like that I would have done differently, because I can't even do what they're doing because they're so good at it.
Yeah.
But then I'll go listen to some older songs from like, I don't know, like the 70s, and then I can hear like where they cut the tape. You know what I mean? I can hear when like they didn't turn down the guitar fast enough, and you can, those little things, and I love it. I love getting lost and dissecting it.
Yeah, dude. And it's funny that you say that, because even on like well, first off, Harry Styles album, that like, I think the way that they did that, it was so minimal, but I think that ended up making it better, and it allowed things to breathe, and the mix was so full and loud, and it was like, if you like dissect it, like we're saying, there's not much going on.
There's not.
And it's like, and his voice just carries, bro, and a lot of live instruments and live drums, and I'm like, oh, this shit is so good.
You know what I heard? They didn't actually use too much crazy stuff. For his vocals, which I think are the strong point of that album, like you said,
absolutely,
they went through like a 1073 and then like an Avalon preamp, something like that. But the room he tracked his vocals in was actually made for recording for like deaf impairment. So it's the most like soundproof room that exists. I don't know what it was, something for like deaf people, just pure silence, and that's how they got that fidelity and clarity out of his vocals, which it's incredible, man.
Yeah, I mean, that probably just allowed them to have a little bit more flexibility, because it was just recorded so well.
Clean, yeah.
And then like the post effects past that just allowed them to be a little bit more, I guess, analytical with it, and like placement was huge for that album. I feel like placement is huge, and like their use of panning, equalization, and volume, I think those were the things that stood out to me the most, where it's just like, there's not much going on, but what they did with it made it just top of the line, dude. And I think that's for sure one of the best albums like released in the past few years.
Me too.
I like
sonically.
Sonically specifically, but then also creatively as well. I mean, Harry Styles is a fucking man.
I love him, dude.
He only works with a few songwriters, and like a lot of them are the guys that worked on the record.
I know.
So it's cool. Like
I kind of get the sense that he kind of sees it like you and I do, like community is like the people he's been around. He works with it's cool. Yeah. It's cool to see that even on the biggest stage possible, And you know who else does that? Taylor Swift.
For sure.
She's always with Jack Antonoff. And then a couple, like her same core guys that she's been with at the beginning. Yeah. And it's cool to see that at the biggest stage possible. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's cool.
And man, it's cool to know that those are, we're talking top of their game artists.
Yep.
And they are the ones that are like keeping the squad tight, and it's always been the same people.
It's like what we were just talking about. Music is community. And that's their circle. We have ours, you know? And it's cool to see that.
For sure, dude.
But I'm sure there's artists out there and on the like top 1% that, who's the next songwriter you can get me with. They don't really have any loyalty to anyone, but it's cool to know that there are those few that kind of see it like us,
Yeah, the ones that are at the top of the game, it seems like they've kind of had their crew though. So I think that's why I love that we've always had such a tight group of people around us. That's like, once we're all popping, it'll be like, yo, we've been homies for 20 years.
I was going to say, what do we know about Data? And it looks like we might be on that trend, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just based off of historical facts here.
That's right.
Dude, no, I love it, man. This is awesome. by the way. I feel like, yo, like you said earlier, it's like no time has passed, bro. It's like just the homies,
we
dude.
can just talk about anything with you, bro. It's awesome, man. I just knew that day I met you, bro. I was like, this dude's so down to earth, man.
Fuck yeah, man.
You were just so cool. We were talking like watches and shit. And I was like, this guy is so cool, bro.
I
was bummed that, we didn't get to link up with everything going on. I know you were in Michigan for a while, and I was going through my stuff, but we'll have to link up again sometime soon, man. And keep you posted with all the stuff I'm working on. And you never know, I might be mixing and mastering something you got up your sleeve, huh?
Absolutely. I mean, for sure. I'd love to at least like try to do something even to like come over to your crib with like some stems or something like that, and then just kind of see what we can do, and just. I
love it.
Yeah.
I just bought the Yamaha NS10s.
The classics.
I got them, bro. I found some nice ones that were slightly used.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to find. Yeah, it's hard to find ones that aren't slightly used.
And they say that one thing about the NS10s is if you can make it sound good on here, it's going to sound good
on anything.
Exactly.
And it's because it's like a very balanced speaker, and it's not like too heavy in the bass. It's not too heavy in the tweet.
They don't sound great though. Don't get me wrong. Like if you played something like Harry Styles sounds really good on there, right? And Taylor Swift sounds really good on there. But if like you find something, you're like, this doesn't sound right. And it's because whoever, mixed it didn't keep that into account for it to translate on all different, sound options. So.
Right. And that's another thing with mixing and mastering. Like when you start playing it on the JBL speaker, on the KRK speakers, and then also the Yamaha speakers, and then also like little things like the Genelecs, like those, like kind of having these different reference speakers. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Headphones, like the, I heard from, it was either J. Cole or one of J. Cole's engineers. He was talking about how the best reference speakers are like the classic Apple headphones.
Oh, the wired ones.
The wired ones.
I've read that too.
Yeah, where it's just like that's one of the best reference speakers. And then obviously the car tests, and all that stuff. Like that's just classics. Like you got to make sure it sounds good across all platforms because it's almost like the reason why they do that is because that's how people are hearing it.
Yep,
if people are listening to it on their phone, they got to be able to make sure it sounds good on the phone.
Correct. Nobody's listening to the same thing on the same speakers. It's crazy to think about how many devices there are out there, and you got to try to translate them to all of them.
Yeah, dude, and that's part of the art. It's like it's part of the art, and it's like
the frustration.
For sure, dude. No, I've had like those HS5s there.
I've got a set too.
I love them, dude. I love them. And I paired it with the HS8S, the subwoofer.
Yeah.
Clean. So it's like I got the trifecta there, and that's been I bought those speakers a week after I moved out here.
Oh, amazing.
The monitors, and then I didn't get the sub until I was already in the band, and it was like 2018. So it was probably about like 3 years.
They're gonna last you another 20 years, bro. Those Yamahas are crazy, man.
Dude, and I'll never forget this. When I went to Guitar Center to buy them, they had the monitor controls. So they basically hooked up a bunch of monitors to a switch, and then you can A/B test.
Yep, I've got that.
And I will never forget this shit, man, because the guy that I was at the time, he was probably just, really knowledgeable in the world, but I don't know if he was like a mixing engineer, but the way that he showed me the difference between specifically the KRK Rockets and then the Yamaha HS5s.
Yeah.
Night and day,
You get too much bass with the KRKs. It's muddy, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And at the time, I'll never forget this, man, because in Michigan, when I first started making beats, I had a homie that he featured on one of my early records, and it was like when I was just making beats and just rapping on them with my friends and stuff.
Yeah.
And he was really good, like rapper / melodic kind of guy, where he had really good tone and stuff. And he had a little setup himself that his dad helped him build in almost like it was like a closet space, but it was like a little bit bigger than a closet space. But then he built the glass.
Oh wow, it was legit.
It was legit. So it was small, but like he had his own little isolation booth. And that was the first time I had ever seen that. And I was like, this is crazy. And he had the KRKs. And he actually sold me my first MIDI keyboard, the Axiom 61 M Audio. That was basically like the older version of that one that I have right there. I love that one right there. But the classic Axiom 61, he sold that to me, but he had the KRK, the 5-inch KRKs. So that was almost like my first, because before that I was working on M Audio BX5s.
Yeah, dude.
So it's like
they're actually not bad for what they are for their price range.
They're not. I still have them in Michigan. They're like my my backups. Whenever I go to Michigan, I still have like my own little But I always remember like that was when I moved out. I was like, maybe I should get some KRKs.
Next level, right?
Like I should level up to the KRKs or whatever. Like this is what hip hop guys are using or whatever. And then as soon as he showed me the A/B test, I was like, dude, it sounds like there's a towel over the speaker.
Yeah, dude. Do you want to know something funny? So Weslyn's current stuff that we've been working on. So Jared has the KRKs.
Oh.
Kevin has the KRKs. And I have the Yamaha HS5s and the NS10s and then some other stuff. So it's so funny to hear it translate between Jared and Kevin. Then when it comes to me, it's like way too much bass. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude.
That's funny, dude.
But it's almost like they were built like that. Like
That's what they wanted.
Yeah, they wanted that to almost be a little bit more hip hop, R&B focused speakers.
Yeah.
And it was to tailor to that audience.
Yeah.
And but when it comes down to like a fundamental mixing standpoint, it's just like it's not gonna translate across all genres.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll never forget that. So like I love those speakers to fucking death, man. And I just,
they're great.
I take care of them, and I think that's the best way to, keep things like good. You just take care of them and you care about them.
That's the coolest thing about gear too, man. You can really tell like the high quality music gear that's made because it's from the 70s and 80s and it's still for sale today and it's still working, and I just love that. And I love buying like used vintage stuff because you can kind of just be like, this had so many stories before it got to me, and if I take good care of this, maybe it'll tell more stories.
Yeah, dude. I mean, the NS10s, that's like everyone talks about how that was the staple.
Yeah.
Like when you still go to professional studios now, they got them.
They got them from the 80s, bro.
Yeah, dude. Like I remember there was when I was doing research and I saw a photo of you recording in Nashville with Dave. They had NS10s in that studio.
You caught that? Yeah, I didn't even realize that. I might have to go back and look, but I think they did.
Yeah, I'll put the picture in post so you can like when we're talking about it, you can be like, oh shoot,
those are the NS10s, bro.
NS10s
that's funny. I haven't really got mine dialed in yet, but I'm really nervous because it's all about treatment and setting them up correctly because they're gonna be my near field reference, right? And I'm just so worried, man. They're so old. Like you could tell whoever had them. One of the speakers is like pushed in.
Oh yeah,
and I hate that,
dude. You can use something to try and suck that back out.
My Dyson V11, bro.
Dude, just hook up the suction, just suck it right out.
Let me know though. Send me that because dude, on my OCD, it's like, damn it.
Yeah, and it's like the woofer actually. Okay, yeah. I mean that might be a little tougher because one time my tweeter got pushed
on
in
your Yamaha?
Not on my Yamahas because the Yamaha has the grill over the tweeter.
Yeah.
But my M Audio BX5 back in Michigan, I had him downstairs and my mom runs a daycare.
Oh,
you know where this story is going.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it was one of those things where she just didn't realize that they were by them and then they just fucking boop.
Did you get it out?
Yeah. And I forgot how I did it, man. And it was almost like, I'm trying to remember, man, but I was able to bring it out, and it was like one of those things where it didn't affect the audio quality, but like visually, I'm just like, fuck.
In your head, dude, I know.
And especially because I'm out here. So when she told me that happened, I'm like, no,
I can't help it.
Way.
You feel helpless. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, no
That's
way,
funny,
dude.
That's the same thing with me though, because like visually, like I legit have OCD, and so like I'm buying this used gear. And I like sit there and like I'm scrubbing these little scratches, and I'm like, why do I buy it? Why do I torture myself like this? You know what I mean, bro?
Buy all this stuff and then refurbish it yourself.
That's what I do in my spare time now.
Dude, I love it, man. I love like having conversations like this because I'm a nerd, dude, when it comes to this stuff. And I know you are too. Yeah. And it's like we've been in this for a decade plus at this point, and from our childhood we've been in music and writing and just loving it, and so it's cool to like have conversations with someone who's just as passionate as I am, man. So before we start to wrap up, I want to talk about one thing that is a big part of your life. Rico the Boston Terrier. I want to talk about that. And
Rico.
Because I remember, of course, man. No, Rico's the GOAT, man. He's about, how old is he now?
He just turned 12. He's getting old. But man, I tell you, dude, he's still got so much energy, dude. Like at night, it's always at night when I'm trying to mellow out and like watch The Sopranos or like 90 Day Fiance or something. He's like ready to play. And I'm like, dude, you're like 88 years old. Like, dude, what are you doing, man? But he's been through everything with me. He's actually been on one of our tours with us.
Yeah.
He went on our big one when we got our first bus. So we rented a bus. Man. And he was on the bus with us. He got to go to the Golden Gate Bridge. and he's seen.
Oh, there's a
pretty much,
picture of you walking with him on
Rico.
the bridge. Yeah,
it's on his Instagram. Yeah, and
Rico the Boston.
I met somebody who had a Boston Terrier, and I was like, this dog's seen like 12 states or something. And she's like, the dog's seen more states than me. And I thought about that. And I'm so grateful I got those opportunities to bring him with me,
Yeah.
We actually made him we took him to like service dog training so he could come on tour. Yeah. So he's technically a service dog.
He's got a vest to prove it.
He's got a vest and a badge. It's a little low key sketch, but don't worry about it. But, he's awesome, man. He's been through so much with me, and he's still hanging tough. And I'll tell him you said hi when I get home.
For sure, man. Tell him I said hi. Tell him Theo said hi. But I wanted to talk about it because when I was doing research, I saw like you were on the hunt for a Boston Terrier. Why? What was it about Boston Terriers that you wanted to find?
This is funny. I don't even know why I remember this, but this was like back in the Vine days.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And this was what, like 2013, maybe 2013 or 14. There was this Boston Terrier. I can't remember his name, but he was Vine famous, and he was a trip. And I was like, dude, that's a cool dog, Like I feel like I was ahead on the Boston Terriers because they're all over the place, bro. But I was first. But I
trendsetter, Greg.
I am, damn it. So I saw I saw this dog and I started researching, and I learned that Boston Terriers are actually really like mellow dogs. I've passed a certain age, and they're really emotional and they are really compassionate. And I was like, dude, that sounds pretty cool. Like I could probably use that in my life right now.
Yeah.
Kind of mellow me out. And I got Rico. I rescued Rico, believe it or not. And I got him for like $300.
Dang, how old was he at the time?
He was barely 3. He had just turned 3.
Okay, so he's still young. Yeah.
Yep. And I got him, and then I brought him home, and he was just like cool. Like he was ready to be my dog. Like it almost felt like a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
Like he was meant to be mine. Dude. I was meant to get him, and he's been great. But I'm kind of on that Boston Terrier gang now. My fiance, she had a miniature wiener dog, Dachshund. He's so cute. His name's Charlie the Weenie on Instagram.
Nice.
And it's such a comparison to see his breed versus Rico.
She still has him?
Yeah, he's so with both of us. Yeah, they get along. They're good.
Yeah, that's sweet.
We had some growing pains at first. Rico had to put him in his place a couple times. And like hey, I was around first,
Right, the territorial stuff.
Yeah, but once they got that figured out, they get along, and it's so funny to see their personalities, man. And it's great. Dogs are great.
100%, dude. No, I completely agree. I mean, I've had Theo for probably like 5 years now, and to see his growth and to see him like become the dog that he is today, and then like getting that new puppy Leo and like bringing him into the equation, and then seeing how that affected his personality and I think dogs are so like human.
Yeah,
I see a lot of human emotions that they display a lot more than like a cat or like any other dog or any other pets.
We're team dog over here.
100% team dog.
No,
bro.
but I totally understand what you're saying, and it's fascinating to see how they can also pick up on our personality. It's really special.
Like yes, bro, they can read our emotions and then they react in like the same way that like a human would react
or should
people
should take some notes from dogs and their awareness. It's actually pretty cool.
That's the word. And I think they're very aware of like energy, and they're very and it's funny because there's only been a couple people in Theo's existence that he's barked at.
Really?
And hate to say it, the people that he's barked at, bad energy, bro. Bad energy.
That's
and it's
fascinating.
Like, and I felt bad energy from them. So then when Theo barked at them,
it was just like,
it's like, that person is not.
He's made this decision. I stand behind it. That's funny you said that. He didn't bark at me when I came in.
Exactly. And that's the thing where he's a loving dog and he's like, everyone loves him, and he's never been the one to like jump all over you necessarily or bark at people and be super annoying. And I think
he's your judge of character. If someone comes in, he's barking like, hey, something came up, you got to go.
It's like, can we reschedule it?
Exactly. That's funny, man.
Yeah, dude. No, but I wanted to touch on that because like Theo's a big part of my life, as I know Rico's a big part of your life, and it's seen you grow, and he's been a part of
along for the ride
stories, and
he's got some stories.
Yeah, dude. And it's like he's now going into you getting married and like all that. And so I love that, man. So I had to bring that up.
Thank you.
So then to wrap up, I want to talk about moving forward for Weslynn. I know you said you guys got a couple songs coming out here at the end of the month.
Yep.
and then you're taking a pause on shows and stuff for now. You're not necessarily performing yet, but yeah, just kind of talk about the stuff that you guys coming out.
So we've got 2 tracks that I mixed and mastered that we're really proud of that are coming out, I think January 26th. So I think this will be a couple days ago.
Ooh, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
perfect timing.
That's perfect timing. Yes.
Fuck
yeah, go listen to that.
Now.
Yes, go listen to that.
And then after that, we've already started working on some really cool stuff. A little bit out of our like comfort zone, a little bit, I would say, more poppy than we're comfortable with. We're trying to try different things, and guess what? We're independent. We can.
Yes.
So we get that freedom.
Flexibility, yeah.
And we're going to see where that goes. And there's been talks about us doing a full length. We've never done a full length. Can you believe that?
Really?
All the music we've put out,
Just
we've put
like
out
EPs?
singles, EPs, never a full length. So Jared's always
your
wanted
debut.
This could be it.
This is your debut.
You know, you got to do it self-titled, right?
Dude,
we've never done self-titled either. So we'll see. But we've got a lot of stuff in store for 2024. And then obviously I'm working on my side hustle with mixing and working with other artists too. So staying busy, man. And I appreciate you having me here, dude.
Dude, of course, man. I appreciate you taking the time. This has just flowed so well. It's like we hit the time like easily without even thinking about it. And dude, I know, right? It's like we could talk forever, but I think that's like the best types of people to bring on, and like people that share the same passion in their own way that like I have my own passions about my art.
Yeah.
So I love having these conversations, and especially like hearing your stories from the beginning to now. It's beautiful, man. So no, this has been amazing. And everyone, please go follow Weslynn online. And what's the handle? Is it at Weslynn Music?
Yep,
okay, yeah.
Weslynn Music.
Yeah, and that's on Twitter and on Instagram. Yeah,
and YouTube as well. So
on YouTube, yeah, go check him out. Go listen to him on Apple Music, on Spotify. Go follow Greg at Greg O.
3 H's.
3 H's. Yeah, that's if you know Greg, you know he goes by Grego.
That's awesome. That's stuck for sure,
dude. It's a dope ass name. It's like if you ever make your own solo like stuff or like any solo, it's got to be Grego, like for sure.
Thank you, bro.
But yeah, my fellow Martians, thank you so much for listening. Go follow Greg. Go follow Weslynn. Follow at On Mars Pod on Instagram, and we'll see you guys next time on Mars. Love you. Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in and watching this episode of the On Mars Pod, and for sticking around to the end, man. I really appreciate you guys. You are the real Martians. Like this video, comment below what your favorite part was, what was most inspiring to you. Subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications here on future interviews coming out soon, and also follow us on Instagram at On Mars Pod. Love you guys so much. We'll see you next time on Mars.